There are two types of people during finals week. The first type studies, and the second type convinces themselves that now is the time to make a life changing decision. I am, unfortunately, the second type. Because during this finals week, while most people were revising past exams and praying for partial marks, I looked at my calendar, looked at my GPA, and thought, yeah, let's add a starter. Now, to set the scene properly, I had, two finals, one of them worth 50% of my grade, and the mental stability of a dying laptop battery. And instead of reacting normally, I decided I would build a startup, pitch it to a room full of investors. Because if I'm already stressed, I might as well commit. This all starts on the last day of classes. I had just finished a final quiz for an elective class, which means my brain was operating on emergency power mode. I was fully prepared to go home, lie down, and stare at the ceiling while thinking about all my past mistakes. And then a friend messages me, "Hey, networking event tonight." Now, any sane person would have said no, but I already wanted to build a startup. I'd been thinking about it for months, so I did what I always do, and dramatically underestimated the consequences. I mean, come on, worst case I make a few connections, and best case something actually happens. And something did happen. You see, while I was at this networking event, I met someone, let's call her M. We're talking, networking, doing that thing where both of us pretend to know what we're doing, and she casually mentions,
"Oh yeah, my university runs this program. They give grants to students building businesses."
"For students? To build businesses? God damn it, that's me." And that is exactly how I accidentally signed myself up for the most aggressively ill-timed commitment of my entire semester. So here's the schedule I committed to before my brain could even stop me. The networking event and the final quiz was on December 5th. The first final that I had was on December 10th, and then the last final that I had was on December 13th, and it was on data structures and algorithms. Now, the startup pitch was also on December 13th, the same day as my DSA final, which was known in my university as being painful, cruel, and worth 50% of the course's grade. At this point, a smarter person would have backed out. I did not. This was the part of the week where I was still delusional, like dangerously optimistic. Day one, I sit down and tell myself, alright, let's be rational. I open a Notion page, I make a checklist, I label section things like market research, MVP scope, the standard startup lingo. I start working on the pitch, sketching out the idea, trying to distill what I'm building into something that sounds intentional. Which, guys, is harder than it looks because in my head it's just, trust me bro dudes, this would be cool. I spent hours trying to answer questions like, what problem am I actually solving? Who is this for? And why should anyone care? And every time I thought I had an answer, my brain would go, okay, but what if they ask a follow-up? So I'd spiral again. At the same time, I'm trying to spec out the MVP, what features are essential, what's fakeable, and what can I confidently demo without it exploding. This is where the real challenge hit, because every engineering instinct I have says build it properly, but the clock was screaming, build it fast, vibe code the shit out of this. So I had to make compromises, hard ones. I cut features I liked, I simplified things I wanted to over-engineer. I chose solutions that were good enough, which is physically painful for a person like me. Then reality checked in. I opened up my D2L course portal and I realized I was significantly behind. Not like, oh, I should review, like, oh, I didn't watch any lecture after the first midterm. So the startup got pushed to the side for days and I studied and studied and studied. Every hour not spent studying felt like guilt. Every hour spent studying felt like panic about what I was going to do for the pitch, which, is an elite mental state to be in. Here's something no one warns you about. Switching contexts constantly is exhausting. One moment I'm thinking about algorithm runtimes and proofs, and the next moment I'm trying to write a pitch sentence that doesn't sound like a buzzword soup. I'd be mid-study session and suddenly remember, oh yeah, I need to make this slide for the pitch. And so I'd get distracted. I'd open my laptop, I'd start writing, and then I'd feel bad halfway through, close it, go back to studying, and repeat. By the time the first final came around, my brain was holding half a startup, half of whatever course I was studying, and zero peace. And somehow I still believed I could brute force this. Which leads us to the part where that belief gets tested. December 12th. I wake up early and I study for almost 16 hours straight. I cover about 16 chapters of CLRS in one day. I woke up at around 4 a.m. and I went to sleep at 10 p.m. And somewhere around hour 10, my brain stopped learning. I wasn't understanding concepts anymore, I was just enduring information. The next morning, I wake up at 3 a.m., get on the bus, study until the exam at 9. I head into the exam hall, my hands clammy and sweaty. The plan was simple: start with the easiest question and warm up. There were no easy questions, so I jumped straight into the highest weight question. It took me an hour. The exam was 2 hours and 30 minutes long, which meant everything else became pure survival. Pages of algorithms, proofs, time complexities. By the time I walked out of the exam hall, I was empty. I seriously considered skipping the pitch. I was exhausted, burnt out, and the idea of giving a half-hearted pitch felt pointless. But I got on the train and I headed to the other university, because nothing changes if you don't show up. The train was ricketing and racketing. I was low, part exhaustion and part dread. No one I talked to had the same answers as me. I was convinced I'd messed the final up completely. Then my friend texted me. Turns out the reason no one had my answers was because they were wrong. My friend had checked using ChatGPT, and it turns out most of my answers were correct. In one message, my mental estimation of my grade jumped from a B to an A. And for the first time that day, I breathed. By the time I arrived to give my pitch, I was calm. I had nothing left to lose. Other teams had more time, more prep, even coaches. I had finals week and a train ticket. But if there's one thing I trust, it's my ability to deliver. Underprepared or not, I walked into that room ready. I didn't get the grant. And yeah, my exams probably would have gone better if I hadn't done the startup. But the most important thing is, I started something. I'm finishing the prototype right now, and I'll probably keep you guys updated because I'm gonna do this over the break. And regardless of the outcome, this week taught me something. Not that stress is good or that overworking is healthy, but when things get hard, we shouldn't back down. And honestly, I think that matters more than a grant.